name's Clint Carton.
And I am Steve Sherman.
I'm Gordon Moore, I think.
No, I'm just kidding.
Reverse them.
Yeah, I'm Steve.
And this is Gordon.
Guys, we are part of a show called The Christ in Culture, and we want to tell you a little bit about what that is like. So we've been doing a show called The Christ in Culture. It's a podcast for about a year and a half now, almost. Yeah. It's crazy to think. But we want to start getting into some videos. As far as The Christ in Culture, this is something that's kind of been in my mind for a couple of years now. But what happens is when I'm doing those things, the first thing that comes to mind is, what is this revealing to me about Christ? That's just a natural thought that I have. Pretty similar to if you follow Bishop Barron's, he calls it the siege of the word. So that's just kind of where this show kind of started from. And then I got to meet these guys, and that's kind of just something that we talk about even when we're not doing the show. So for those of you who don't know who we are, we want to start by just telling you a little bit about ourselves. We built this to start a discussion with you guys because we want to share it with you too. So if you guys want to share, Gordon, maybe how you came into this?
I'm from Georgia originally, and then moved out here to Houston to be a missionary, and met these guys through young adult groups and other Catholic communities around. And I've always loved metaphors, like painting pictures in conversations or with others to help better explain just anything. And I already just loved myself, I love the arts, and that being mostly movies and film and stuff like that. And so when they started this podcast, it was really just them two, Steve and Clint, and I just was a huge listener and loved sending them ideas, and they invited me into it because they needed more help and another, I think, perspective.
Off, Steve, but I think that's one of the cool things about having the three of us is we are coming from it in very different ways. If you follow us on Twitter or other places, you know that we call ourselves the geek,
the hipster,
and the very amateur theologian.
Yeah, so we have all these different ways of thinking about things, but those are just very poor descriptions of who we are, but we do think about things very differently, and so I think that's a good addition.
All of us kind of encompass all of those things in a small way.
Yeah.
I'm Steve. I'm just a guy that basically I studied theology. I was a youth minister for a number of years. I work for a nonprofit now. At the time we started this podcast, I was thinking of doing a podcast, but I had no idea kind of what I would do. And it was actually funny because I was praying about that and kind of getting that in prayer, and then Clint comes up and he was like, "Oh yeah, I want to start a podcast," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Me too.
Me too. And so we kind of prayed about it, and by prayed about it, I mean did nothing about it for about 6 months. And then we finally did something about it.
Thanks to a lot of your help, actually, because a lot of what we were waiting on was financial stuff.
And a hurricane hit.
Yeah.
And that really set us back, was the fact that Houston was underwater.
We live near Houston. We didn't say that.
Yeah.
We live down here in glorious southeast Texas.
Yeah, we're all in the great nation of Texas. None of us are from here. I'm from Pennsylvania, Clint's from Iowa, and Gordon is from Georgia. So we're all transplants, but
yeah, where we are recording, there are a lot of trees, but that's very uncommon.
That's who I am.
So kind of the premise of the show, we'll talk about that a little bit, is basically we were created by a God who made us to desire himself. And because of that, everything that is good, everything that is true, everything that is beautiful, these transcendentals, all those things point us back ultimately to God. And so the places in our culture, like movies, books, music, TV shows, art, any of that stuff, even clothing, food, whatever.
Dance.
Yeah, all of those things, if they're done well, if we enjoy them, if there's something in that brings truth to us, should reveal something about Christ to us. And so that's basically what our show is about. We take all those things and we break it down and we start this discussion we want you guys to be a part of. Mm-hmm. So we started on the show, and then we hope that you continue it with your friends, with us, all the above.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that ultimately we all have our own stories, right? We have this adventure of our lives, this story of our life, and it's all part of a greater story, right? All of these little stories are all part of the Theo-Drama, right? God's story. And so, in a lot of ways we call for y'all to be a part of the adventure, right? For us to all get together, all of our stories to mesh and grow. And that's also something we see in the media, right? These are all stories that point to something, right? And our stories of our lives point back to God, right? And they're part of that larger drama.
And I'd like to speak into, like, if you've been on the journey so far with us, then this is kind of a new avenue we are going with video, and we're hopefully in the next few months we'll be going into like other avenues. And so with the podcast, which is more audio, that is taking like a huge theme, whether it's like a full movie, a full TV show, and breaking it down, all the different themes we can see in a matter of like 40 minutes to an hour. These are going to be like smaller snippets of kind of more of a reflection that you'll get hopefully like every other week, of something that ties back into scripture, something that kind of Clint was saying, reveals us more about Christ, but in just a smaller picture. Like maybe it is something from a movie, but not the entirety of it.
Maybe
just
it's
like
a line or a character.
Yes, just like a something like that. And so if you're wondering, like I said, if you've been with us so far, or if you're just tuning in, what the difference is with all these different things, it's so we can break down and go deeper with a lot of these themes and attack things that might not fit within like a 40-minute realm, and really show you that like Christ is everywhere.
One other thing I want to go off of with what Steve was saying here is the idea that our story, our life is an adventure, right? And that we all desire some kind of adventure that brings us to something else, right? Something greater. That's really our call to arms. So you'll see us put it on everything. # welcome to the adventure, right? Because that is our life. It's an adventure. And so we're being called to greater things through that, I think.
So this Sunday, the reading, it's a great reading, but we're going to kind of to focus down specifically here. So I'm going to get into this particular line. Rather love your enemies and do good to them. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For he himself is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. When I read that line, first off, it reminds me that the gifts that God gives to us, right, the mercies that he gives us, are not to be hoarded or not to be held on to, right? That the reason we have our gifts, our talents, or even the mercy of God is to then go and share that with others, right? So God forgives us so that we have the grace, so that we go and in turn give that gift of forgiveness to others, that gift of mercy to others. Anyone who listens to the podcast or talks to me for any real extended period of time will eventually hear me talk about the Jubilee Year in the Jewish tradition, and I love that. Because in the Jubilee Year, it was every 50 years. It was every 49, 7 times 7, 49. They'd have a year of preparation, then they would celebrate the Jubilee Year on the 50th. And in the Jubilee Year, during it, your debts were forgiven you. If you were a slave, you were set free. And if you had land that was like taken, it would be restored to you.
Yep.
And the reason that you did that wasn't because, these people are deserving of whatever, right? Because they might have squandered. The reason that they don't have their land could be they squandered it or gambled it away or something like that. Which is because you were participating in the heart of God. You were participating in the gifts of God, right? So God had set the Jewish people free from Egypt, so you were to set others free. He had wiped away your debt of sin, so you were to wipe away others' debts.
Yeah.
He had restored your land of Israel, your promised land, so you were to restore the land to others.
Yeah. Forgive us our debts as we forgive those.
Right, yeah, the Lord's Prayer. And so that's what I take from it.
Yeah, I think where my heart's at, just because I just taught some of my kids about the works of mercy. There's like two types: works of mercy that speed into physical, and works of mercy that speed into spiritual and emotional. And how you can't. It says somewhere in the Catechism. I don't sadly have it on hand, where you can't just do one. You can't just do corporal works and not spiritual works. It's like the passage of the rich man who's like has followed the commandments, yet he has all these things. And it's like, yes, you've done half of what you need to do. And I know in this passage, you talk about turning the other cheek. And when you think about that idea with turning the other cheek, that's twofold. If you turn the other cheek, you're physically like walking away of the situation and not like having vengeance, but also emotionally, you're letting go of whatever you're grieving, or like the vengeance in your heart. You're spiritually letting go. And so there's this twofold of like acts of kindness, but also twofolds of like reactions too. That there is this physical and spiritual, and that goes into almost like TOB too.
Theology of the body.
Yeah, spiritual and physical aspect of mercy.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, the thing that stood out to me the most, I think, from that was that you should do good without expecting anything in return. And really, it's funny that we mentioned the hurricane, because I think we definitely saw that part of humanity come out during that time. I know none of us had anything like super bad. Like, I lost my car, but whatever. Like, some people lost their homes. None of us had anything super bad, but a lot of the people lost a lot of stuff around here. And so we were able to see all of these people come out of their shell and just want to serve and just want to love these people, not because they got anything in return, because these people had nothing left to give. And yet people came out and served them,
Right.
expecting nothing in return. And so I think that's very much what we're called to as Christians. And it is kind of unfortunate that sometimes it takes kind of those disasters for things like that to happen. But that's the life that we're called to.
Yeah.
So this is just a short intro to a little bit of what's going to be going on. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. There's going to be a lot more to come, especially if you like cultural things. This is going to be your place. So if you're into it, go ahead, grab yourself some tea. We always like to drink tea while we're doing this kind of thing. And please feel free to share everything we do. If you want to check out our podcast, go do that. If you want to check out our website, go check out that. Follow us on social media, and please just share us, because the more you help us, the more people we can reach, and that's really important. If you want to know where to do those things, check out the note section. We'll post all of that there. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us on the adventure.